around the apple orchard. Hi, sweet friends. I hope you are well. We have been fighting some fall bugs this week. We have been ill and down for the count. But the good news is we are feeling a lot better and rounding a corner, so we can finally pick back up on some of these autumn activities and get back into the coziness of it all. I was driving around earlier this morning and I looked around and all of a sudden it hit me that we are in like peak New England autumn because the foliage is on full display in all of its glory. There are so many beautiful new colors out, and I feel like this is what happens every year. I like wait and wait and wait for the like peak foliage to happen, and then all of a sudden overnight you're driving around one day and it's like here. And that just made me realize, because we're in peak autumn, that also means it's going to disappear pretty soon, because unfortunately, while the colors are so beautiful, they don't last very long before they fall off the trees and turn into those crunchy brown soggy leaves on the ground. So I definitely need to get back to doing our autumn activities, make up for some lost time while I was sick this week. So over the next few days, I thought we could do some cozy autumn things like leaf peeping. I definitely want to get outside, go for a walk, see what new colors have popped in our neighborhood, in our local area. And then I thought we could make a really warm soup together. It just occurred to me I have not made an autumnal soup yet. Every year I'll do like a butternut squash or something, and I haven't done that yet. So we'll definitely have to do that. And Halloween is also around the corner, so we definitely need to carve a pumpkin. I want to talk to you about some of the seasonal books that I've been reading. Just been in a book reading kick recently. I'm not mad about it. I'm loving it. So I want to share some of those books with you, and then maybe we'll do some cozy hobbies. We'll just get up to all kinds of goodness, and I am really excited to spend the next couple of days with you just getting cozy, soaking in all this autumn goodness before we have to switch gears and turn towards a dreary winter that is upon us. So thank you so much for joining me, and let's go get cozy and do a couple of these autumn activities. Mentioned that I was in a bit of a reading streak. It's been so fun to get through my TBR and work towards some of my yearly reading goals. And I've just been having a great old time. And I think where I left you last was I began to read The Bridge Kingdom by Danielle L. Jensen. I was taking a little break from some of the like autumnal atmospheric type of books, and I wanted to like dive into a fantasy world, because that's also so much fun to do when you're like cozy inside and getting lost in a different world. And I devoured this book in like a day and a half, and I had such a great time with it. I thought Lara and Aaron were really fun main characters. I enjoyed their romance. It's a little bit of like a forced proximity, arranged marriage type of situation. It's not very heavy on the fantastical elements, so there's no like magic, there's no like beasts and fairies and dragons, and there's like none of that. And I actually ended up having to Google like, why is it even called a fantasy? Because you don't have any of those types of elements. But the reason they gave is because it's set like in a kingdom that's like made up and like non-existent. That's what helps classify it as a fantasy. So interesting, I guess, but yeah, it's very light on the fantasy aspect, but I did have a really nice time. The writing is super simple, it's easy to understand, it's very fast paced, and sometimes when you get like simple writing, it can be like a little bit too like dumbed down almost and a little too simplistic. But I actually found it compelling at the same time as it's simple. So it was like a really interesting dynamic. And I enjoyed the way she wrote. I enjoyed how quickly the chapters went by. I mean, I clearly devoured it in like a day and a half. So I had a really good time with it. And then the other thing is that I immediately wanted to jump into the second book after I read that first one. The first one I gave 4 stars to. I love the aspect of her being raised to become like a spy and a warrior and like an assassin and just like infiltrate this other kingdom. It was really fun to read about her as a character. I really enjoyed her. Very strong, like super skilled, really, really enjoyed it. And then I went straight into The Traitor Queen, which is the next book in the series. And I cannot remember the last time that I finished a book in a series and immediately wanted to go to the next book. I usually take a break, get like a palate cleanser, change up genres, read something in between. But this time I was like, no, I immediately want to pick up the next one. So that's exactly what I did. I read this one just as quickly. Now, this one I do wish had a little bit more of the romance element, a little bit more of that yearning. Something pretty drastic kind of happens at the end of this one, and I wanted there to be a little bit more like yearning and that type of feeling between the characters, a little bit more like the atonement to be drug on a bit. Like, I don't know, it didn't feel like that part was fleshed out a lot or even given much attention to, because in this one you just get a lot of action. It's like go, go, go from the very first second that you start reading it, which is similar to the first one. But in the first one, you got like a few slower moments for some of those like character traits to develop, some of the like engagement between the two romantic leads to happen. Whereas in this one, you don't get a second to breathe. They like barely sit down and something else is happening and they're thrown into something else. And it's just like constantly on the go. But again, loved the writing. I'm having a good old time with her little story here. But again, I will say very fantasy light. So if you're looking for some of those like deep world building elements, they're not really there because there's not actually anything to talk about, but it does have a lot of politics. There's a lot of different kingdoms trying to vie for power, and there's a lot of different dynamics at play. In this one, you get a lot of new characters. You're introduced to like new parts of the kingdoms. So I had a good time with it. This one, I would say I gave like a 3.5 to. Now, don't let that deter you. It's not because I did not enjoy the story. It just wasn't as fun as the first book, which I gave 4 stars to. And as soon as I finished that one, I did pick up the third book. Now, this one I'm only a couple of chapters into. I'm going to probably slow down a little bit now because in this one, you get a new love interest, like 2 totally different sets of characters. They're in this world. They're obviously like part of this whole big story, but it's told in 2 completely different POVs. And so you kind of like shift gears from the main 2 characters in these books. So I'm interested to see how all of that plays out. The politics are building up a bit more. There's a little bit more going on. You see, again, just like the kingdom kind of expanding, and you're getting exposure to like behind the scenes of what's going on in some of these other areas. So what I will say about this series is that, like I said, fantasy light, no magical elements, no fantastical creatures, compelling characters. I like the love story, but it's one of these like series. If you are a seasoned fantasy reader, you might find it lacking because there's just not a ton of substance in some of those elements. But if you're new to romantasy, if you enjoy some of the like lighter aspects of it, this might be a good series to dive into and get into because Danielle's writing is super easy to understand and it's not complex and you're not like getting a lot of world dumpy kind of information. So very, very easy to read. Now, at the same time, I'm also reading a couple more atmospheric autumnal books because I feel like autumn is just so fleeting and it's going to be gone before we know it. And so while we're in the peak of it all, I thought I would sneak in a couple more books. I reread Pumpkinheads every year. This is by Rainbow Rowell. It's a graphic novel. It's so cute and wholesome. The entire graphic novel takes place at a pumpkin patch. There's like this cute little map on the inside, and it has like a s'mores pit and like an apple bobbing area, a corn maze, all of the autumnal things. So I read this book not because, you know, the story is like super compelling. It is cute, but I read it more to just like get me in the mood to like throw on my overalls and get to a pumpkin patch and carve a pumpkin and just like put me in that type of mood. So I like to flip through that one. And then I've also started the Honeycrisp Orchard Inn. This is by Valerie Bowman. Such a cute cover. I'm only a couple of chapters into this one. Very, very atmospheric. It's set on Long Island at this apple orchard, and on the apple orchard is this inn, and the female main character's parents own that inn, and the male character's parents own the orchard. And they're kind of in like a forced proximity situation. They kind of have to live together for a little while. They have to work on this like festival that's coming up. And yeah, just hitting all of the autumnal notes. Now, what I will say is a couple of weeks ago, I finished If It Makes You Happy. This was like my other autumnal read for the season. And with this one, you're not getting as much emotional depth. I feel like this one's a lot more surface level, whereas this one, you have some more heart and there's a few more complex topics being like uncovered and explored, whereas like in this one, even though the characters are going through something, it's just not that deep. And I think this one is meant to be more of like just atmospheric. This one is as well, but this one just explores a few more things. It's a slow burn. There's, you know, deeper conversation about things. The banter is really good. In this, I just find it to be a little lacking in that sense. Like they're kind of arguing about like Starbucks drinks and like superficial things, like, you know, not that deep and meaningful. So, you know, this one might be one of those like read on an airplane if you're going somewhere, if you're going on like a quick holiday, it might be a good book to read. That type of vibe. Just, you know, nothing super deep, but still having a good time with it. I think it's like nice for this time of year to like squeeze a couple of these types of reads in. So that is what I have going on. I randomly also am reading this book called Worlds of Affirmation. So every now and again, I like to throw in a couple of nonfiction books. This one is tiny. And this one is just all the different ways to like show affection and love and the different words that are used in different languages throughout the world. I just thought that was so neat. And I'm learning a lot. What I'm realizing is that there are words in English that don't quite convey a lot of feelings. Like there are words in other languages that like mean exactly that specific feeling that in English it would take like multiple sentences to convey that feeling, if you know what I mean. So I have been having a really nice time with this one. And speaking of nonfiction books, I am working on making like an annotation video for nonfiction books, but nonfiction's a bit trickier. So I'm just trying to like think through it, but that will come soon. I just wanted to, in the meantime, give you a little update on what I'm reading. I hope you've been having a lot of fun reading as well recently. If you're an avid reader, I would love to hear about what's been on your TBR and what you've been enjoying. But I've been bouncing back and forth between a few autumnal reads and atmospheric romances, and then kind of getting back into fantasy, gearing up for like winter when I like to read like super high fantasy and like get lost in like a more complex world. So this is like a nice ease into it for the season.
So stunning.
couple of days it's been, just doing some wholesome, cozy seasonal activities. It's been nice to be out and about and up and at 'em again after spending a few days just being sick and in bed. I'm going to sit now and do a little bit of journaling in my bullet journal, just getting it ready for November. But before I sat and did that, I just wanted to say farewell and thank you for joining me for these last couple of days. I always love spending some cozy time with all of you, and just to take a minute also to say how grateful I am for each and every one of you that watches and supports and says lovely, lovely things. I really enjoy sharing and spending this kind of time with you. So thank you for watching and always providing that support. While I journal, I'm going to be watching my other cozy show of every autumn season. I wanted to mention it just in case you hadn't heard of it, but you probably have. I, like most people, have been having Gilmore Girls on in the background, and I've made my way through like 2 seasons now, and I think I need a little bit of a break. So I'm gonna switch over to my other cozy show, which is the Great British Baking Show. Oh my goodness. If you have not watched this, you have got to get to Netflix and watch from season 1. There's like a million seasons, but it is just so wholesome. It is so sweet, and I think the best part is that they're not even like playing for anything. And that's the difference between like US baking competition shows versus like this one, because they're just playing for like, I think a cake stand is what they win at the end of the season, but they just like give their heart and soul into every week's competition. And they're also like sweet and lovely to each other. And you learn about their background and their lives. And I don't know, there's just something about that little tent where they have this show and you spend like all these weeks with these contestants and you like really get to know people. It's just the most cozy and wholesome thing. So I'm gonna have that on in the background while I do a little bit of journaling in my bullet journal. And I wanted to say thank you for joining me, and I will see you in my next video.